Today, I'm going to give you a few tools that'll help you discover your next step, especially when you're discouraged. Now, the truth is, when you're discouraged, it can be difficult to have the motivation to find your next step. But part of the reason is because, as we looked at before, discouragement is actually tied to hopelessness. When you're lacking hope, then discouragement rises. But when you start to have more hope and hope starts to rise, then discouragement starts to fade away. Part of the reason is because it gives us a sense of what's next. It gives us a sense of something that's big that's coming up. And that's good. That's really good. So that's part of the reason I want to help you in your discouragement to find your next step. Now, if it's just a step that you're coming up with, then you might easily give up on that and just say, it's not that important. And I give up. But when it's a step that you believe that, and you know that this is part of what you're made for, you're designed for it, then that's actually easier to hold on to and to last beyond it because it's bigger than just you. So I don't want you to just figure out what's a step that you can take. I'm really hoping that these tools will help you discover what the next step you should take based upon the way that you have been designed and made. So let's jump on into it. And we're going to use an example. We've been looking at an example of Elijah. And in his life journey, in his story, we see some really incredible things that may be similar to what you've gone through. Now, we looked at, first of all, leading up into this, a long period that he was waiting. And he was waiting and waiting for things to happen. And finally, he saw the things he was really hoping for happen. Great success, great achievements. And so if you miss that, you can check out how to not miss out while you're waiting. But then right after that, after huge success, maybe the greatest achievement of his life, he had incredible depression and discouragement. And so if you missed that, we talked about 3 ways to fight discouragement. That's where it brings us right now. Now, he's still in a state of discouragement. He still was extremely discouraged. In fact, he was saying, I just want to die. Let's take my life. And so that's like, he was depressed, he was in despair. And this is where it brings us to. Now, how do you find your next step? Let's jump in and see where he is. Now, if you have a Bible, you can actually look at 1 Kings chapter 19. That's where it's coming out of. And I'm just going to touch back on verse 8 from what we talked about last time. It says that he traveled 40 days and 40 nights until he reached Horeb, the mountain of God. And then we're going to continue. There he went into a cave and spent the night. And the word of the Lord came to him, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" He replied, "I have been very zealous for the Lord God Almighty. The Israelites have rejected your covenant, torn down your altars, and put your prophets to death with the sword. I am the only one left, and now they're trying to kill me too." So the first thing you can do to discover your next step when you're discouraged is to listen for God's questions about you. I'm going to give you 3 things that can help in that process. The first thing is that you need to be intentional to meet with God. Be intentional about meeting with Him. And we can see that in what he did. He traveled for 40 days and 40 nights. Now, that was an important step. He made an effort. Seek God out. Look for Him. That happens when you believe that He has answers and solutions for you. Do you believe that? It's true. He has the best solutions for you. But the thing is, you don't have to feel that great about it. Elijah did not feel great. He actually had just had a conversation with God saying, just take my life. He's feeling like it's pointless. He doesn't feel like there's a reason. It's not based on emotion, but there's something powerful when we act and not just based upon how we feel, but what we choose to believe. That's faith. That's saying, I believe this even though I don't feel it. And God rewards that. And this is what Elijah is doing right here. He's saying, I'm choosing to meet with you, God. Not just to go and read books. Not just to go and wallow in my own feelings. Not just to go and talk with other people. Those are all things that are easier to do. So it's really important to say, I'm going to be intentional about meeting with God. God honors that because it shows faith that He has the solutions for you. And we saw he traveled a long time to this place that was known for being the mountain of God. I want to ask you this. Where's your place to meet with God? What is that special place for you? For him, it was Mount Horeb. It was this place that was known for being the special place of God. What is it for you? That's the first thing. The second thing is let God ask probing questions. Let him ask probing questions. Sometimes one of my kids will come to me upset, frustrated, maybe fussing and complaining, saying, this person did this to me. That wasn't fair, wasn't nice. And sometimes I'll just stop and say, what were you doing at that time? And they don't really like it because they want to just talk about, well, it's not fair what they did to me. But I'll sometimes put it on them. Okay, well, what were you doing in that moment? And a lot of times we're like that when we go to God. And we don't want him to ask those types of questions. We just want to direct God to what we need, what we feel. God, I want you to solve this problem. What's going on is not fair. We don't want him to ask questions about where we're at, what we were doing, how we're in that place. And by the way, when God is asking questions about us, it's not because he doesn't know. He knows better than we know our own state. But that's part of the reason he asks. It's because he wants us to get a better handle on where we're at, on what's going on. So it's really weird. In this moment, he says, he's asking Elijah, he says, what are you doing here, Elijah? And it's almost like he didn't expect him. Like, what's going on? But God is the one who gave him the strength and the ability to even make it there. So why did he ask the question? Again, I think it's part of him helping Elijah discover what he was doing there. Elijah knew that this was a holy mountain, a place that Moses had met with God and others before. He was coming. He was coming for that purpose, to get answers, even though his response was not so pleasant. I often find that I'm on the right track in discovering my next step, in understanding what God is saying to me when I'm feeling a little out of my comfort zone. And I think when there's that introspection, that question, it pushes me maybe to explore, well, why am I here? What's going on? And it pushes me. It's not necessarily comfortable, but it's a good thing. And so in this moment, we see God's causing him to sort of struggle with, well, why are you here? What's really going on? And he gave a response. Looking at the response is going to help us understand more. Now, this is the third thing. So first of all, when you want to understand your next step, when you want to look for God's questions about you, like, again, we want to be intentional about meeting with God. You want to let God ask probing questions. Then the third thing is dialogue with heartfelt authenticity. Elijah was really authentic in the way that he responded to God. And what I would say is listen for, look for a back and forth in your communication with God. That's actually a good thing. It's almost a wrestling of emotions with him. And I think when I was younger, I didn't know exactly how to do that or if it was okay. But God really is okay with that. He's okay with us just sharing how we are raw about certain things. And one thing that helped me is that I needed to understand that in that moment when I'm just expressing my authentic heart to God, I'm not trying to have intellectual, accurate responses. I'm trying to get out this place of where I'm feeling emotionally and what I'm struggling with spiritually. I want to get that out to him. It's an authentic state. Elijah's response, he says, I've become very zealous for the Lord God Almighty. I've been very zealous. I've lived with passion for you, God. The Israelites have rejected your covenant, torn down your altars, and put your prophets to death with the sword. I'm the only one left, and now they're trying to kill me too. It's pointless. He felt really pointless, and he may not have been right. We're going to come and see. It wasn't so much about being accurate, it was about sharing where he was at. And I also want to say that it takes some time. It does take time to figure out where we are at. If you remember in this story, 40 days he traveled. And in that travel, I'm sure he was thinking about a lot of these things, because when God was asking him about things before, he was just saying, I want to die. Now he's telling very specific reasons why he feels like he failed. That's really important, to be able to articulate that back and forth with God. That helps us. So if you're not there yet, still go back and look at 3 Ways to Fight Discouragement, because that'll give you some good healthy habits about how you can get to this place where you can just meet with God, and get better at articulating it. Both are okay when you're going to meet with God and just talk with him, but in this process it takes some time. That's okay. Be patient, but also understand that it's good as you articulate some of those fears, the failures, the doubts that you've had.